Before you send that message. Before you try to explain how much you care. Before you chase someone who is already pulling away. Pause. Because what you're about to hear may go against everything you believe about love. Most men think attraction is built by effort. By consistency. By proving you're willing to stay. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you chase, the less she feels. Not because she is cold. Not because she is cruel. But because desire does not respond to pressure. It responds to presence. To self-control. To a man who remains whole. Even when love is uncertain. This video is not about manipulation. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding why the moment you stop chasing is often the moment she starts feeling again. Listen carefully. Because this understanding doesn't just change how women see you. It changes how you see yourself. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where every story and lesson about love will help you find the answer. Today, we will explore a new perspective through the topic, why stopping the pursuit makes women come back to you. These are real-life experiences and profound lessons that will change the way you perceive love. Follow me, because the most surprising and interesting things are still waiting for you ahead. Before starting, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax your mind. Let the sharing in this video help you feel more fully and enjoy every meaningful moment. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Let's begin. Part 1, The Paradox of Attraction, Why Chasing Never Creates Desire. There is a hard truth most men learn too late in life. The more desperately you chase, the faster attraction dies. I didn't learn this from books. I learned it from silence. From unanswered messages. From watching a woman who once laughed at my jokes slowly lose interest as I tried harder to keep her. At the time, I thought effort was love. Persistence was commitment. Chasing was proof of sincerity. But life taught me something brutal and liberating. Desire is not built through pursuit. It is revealed through absence. This is the paradox most men struggle to accept. And once you understand it, everything changes. Attraction is not logical, it is emotional and energetic. A woman doesn't feel attraction because you're good enough, kind enough, or available enough. She feels attraction when your presence feels scarce, grounded, and emotionally self-contained. When you chase her, you collapse your center. You hand her emotional control. You communicate, without words, that your happiness depends on her response. And dependence is never attractive. Stoic philosophy teaches us a fundamental principle. The only thing truly under your control is your own inner state. The moment you abandon this principle in love, the moment you let her reactions dictate your emotional balance, you lose the quiet authority that made her notice you in the first place. Why chasing signals weakness, even if your intentions are pure? Most men misunderstand weakness. Weakness is not vulnerability. Weakness is neediness disguised as devotion. When you chase, you respond immediately. You explain yourself too much. You seek reassurance instead of offering presence. You try to convince instead of standing still. From her perspective, something subtle happens. She feels pressured to choose. She feels guilty for not reciprocating at the same level. And guilt slowly turns into emotional distance. Not because she is cruel, but because attraction cannot survive obligation. A woman doesn't want to feel like she is your emotional oxygen. She wants to feel that you choose her, not that you need her to breathe. The masculine power of stillness. There is a quiet power in a man who does not chase. Not arrogance. Not coldness. But stillness. A Stoic man understands this. He shows interest once. He expresses desire clearly. And then he returns to his life. He does not hover. He does not chase energy that pulls away. He does not negotiate attraction. This stillness creates something rare, space. And in space, two things happen. She feels the absence of pressure. She begins to feel the absence of you. Ironically, this is often the moment attraction reawakens. Why women return when you stop chasing. When you stop chasing, you do three powerful things at once. First, you reclaim your self-respect. Nothing is more quietly attractive than a man who values his time and emotional energy. Second, you disrupt her expectations. She expects pursuit. When it disappears, curiosity replaces certainty. Third, you force her to feel instead of being chased. When you chase, she reacts. When you stop, she reflects. And reflection is where desire is born. She begins to ask herself questions. Why did he pull back? Did I misjudge him? What if I lose access to him? Notice something important here. You didn't manipulate. You didn't play games. You simply stopped abandoning yourself. Stoic love is not about control, it is about freedom. Many men misunderstand Stoic love as emotional detachment. That is false. Stoic love is emotional sovereignty. It means you love deeply, but you are not owned by the outcome. You offer presence, but you do not beg for reciprocity. You remain open, but you do not chase what withdraws. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can be hurt only if you allow your mind to be conquered." In love, this means you don't try to control her feelings. You control your reaction to them. And paradoxically, that is what often makes her feel safe, drawn, and curious again. The shift every man must make. If you remember only one thing from this part, remember this. Women don't leave because you stop chasing. They leave because you never stop chasing. Chasing erodes mystery. Chasing kills polarity. Chasing turns desire into obligation. When you stop chasing, you are not walking away in bitterness. You are saying, I am open to love, but I will not abandon my center to earn it. That sentence, spoken silently through your actions, is often the moment she turns back. Have you ever realized that, in love, moments of silence are sometimes more powerful than 1,000 words? Because in silence, we can hear our heartbeat more clearly and feel the presence of the other person more deeply. Here, I want to explore with you that strength, peace, and stability even when love goes through challenges. If you feel that these shares bring you something positive, please click like to support. And if you haven't clicked subscribe, do it now, so you don't miss any insight into love and maturity. I also hope to hear your story. What is the most valuable lesson that love has taught you? Please share in the comments section so we can learn and be inspired together. Come on, let's move on to the next part with a more prepared mind. Part 2, What happens in her mind when you withdraw with dignity? Most men believe that when they stop chasing, a woman simply forgets them. That belief comes from fear, not truth. In reality, when a man withdraws with dignity, something far more complex begins to happen inside her mind. Not immediately. Not dramatically. But quietly, steadily, and deeply. And that is where attraction lives. The difference between disappearing and withdrawing. Let's make one thing clear. Walking away in anger is not strength. Disappearing to punish is not stoic. Silence used as manipulation is still dependence in disguise. A stoic withdrawal is different. It is calm. It is grounded. It carries no resentment. You don't leave to teach her a lesson. You leave because you refuse to abandon yourself. And women feel this difference instinctively. One feels like emotional pressure. The other feels like emotional gravity. When the noise stops, her mind gets loud. While you were chasing, her emotional experience was simple. She reacted to you. Your messages. Your effort. Your reassurance. But when you stop chasing, something uncomfortable happens for her. The noise disappears. And in that silence, her mind fills the gap. She starts to replay moments. Your presence. Your calmness. Your certainty. The way you didn't ask to be chosen. This is important. Attraction does not grow while she is being pursued. Attraction grows during reflection. And reflection requires absence. Why emotional restraint creates polarity. Polarity is the tension between two emotional energies. Masculine energy is grounded, centered, self-directed. Feminine energy is responsive, emotional, flowing. When you chase excessively, polarity collapses. You move into her emotional frame. You react instead of lead. You seek instead of invite. But when you withdraw with self-control, you return to your center. You stop leaking emotional urgency. You become solid again. This reestablishes polarity. And polarity is what turns comfort back into desire. She begins to feel, not be entertained. Here is a truth few men understand. While you chase, she is occupied. When you stop, she begins to feel. Feeling includes curiosity, doubt, nostalgia, fear of loss, desire. These emotions cannot arise when you are always present and predictable. By stepping back, you stop performing. And she stops consuming. Now, she must confront her own emotional response to your absence. This is often the moment she realizes. You are more important than I allowed myself to admit. Why certainty kills desire, but security sustains it. Women don't lose attraction because a man is kind. They lose attraction because he becomes certain without being solid. Certainty without self-respect feels cheap. Availability without boundaries feels empty. When you withdraw, you remove certainty. But you keep emotional safety. You're not gone. You're not bitter. You're simply no longer orbiting her. This creates a powerful internal conflict. She feels safe, but no longer in control. And attraction often lives exactly there. The silent question that starts to form. Eventually, a question appears in her mind. Not spoken. Not logical. But emotional. Why isn't he trying anymore? This question is dangerous, in the best way. Because it forces her to reassess your value, her assumptions, her emotional position. She may tell herself stories. He moved on. He has options. He respects himself. And whether those stories are fully true or not doesn't matter. What matters is that your value has increased through restraint, not effort. Stoic love refuses to beg for meaning. Stoicism teaches us. Meaning comes from how we act, not how others respond. In love, this means you don't argue with disinterest. You don't negotiate desire. You don't plead for clarity. You observe. You accept. You adjust your behavior accordingly. This quiet self-command does something profound. It makes your presence feel intentional, not desperate. And intention is deeply attractive. Why she often reaches out first. When enough time passes, many women do something unexpected. They reach out. Not always with romance. Sometimes with curiosity. Sometimes with something casual. Sometimes with just checking in. But underneath that message is a deeper motive. She wants to feel your emotional temperature. Are you still centered? Are you bitter? Are you unchanged? And here is the final test most men fail. If you respond with the same chasing energy as before, attraction dies again. But if you respond with calm presence, interest without urgency, warmth without attachment, then something clicks for her. She feels the polarity again. The Stoic principle that changes everything. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." In love, this means, don't explain your worth. Live it. Withdrawing with dignity is not a tactic. It is a reflection of inner order. And when a woman feels that order, that emotional self-mastery, she often returns not because you pulled her back, but because you stopped chasing what wasn't aligned. Part 3, The Power of Silence, When Doing Nothing Does Everything. Silence is misunderstood. Most men fear it. They associate silence with loss, rejection, or failure. So they rush to fill it with messages, explanations, apologies, promises. But silence, when grounded in self-respect, is not emptiness. It is pressure. It is presence. It is power. Why men talk too much when they're afraid? When a man senses emotional distance, his instinct is to fix. He explains himself. He reassures. He asks questions that don't need answers. Not because he is weak, but because uncertainty makes him uncomfortable. Stoicism teaches the opposite response. When something is outside your control, step back, not forward. A woman's feelings are outside your control. Trying to manage them with words is an illusion. And illusions eventually collapse. Silence forces emotional truth to surface. Words allow people to hide. Silence removes that shelter. When you stop explaining, justifying, and chasing, you remove her ability to react mechanically. She must confront her own emotional reality. Does she miss you? Does she feel relief? Does she feel curiosity, or loss? None of these answers appear when you're constantly talking. They appear in quiet. The difference between weak silence and strong silence. Not all silence is equal. Weak silence is passive-aggressive. It is filled with resentment. It waits to be noticed. Strong silence is clean. It is peaceful. It continues living fully without demanding a response. One feels like punishment. The other feels like gravity. Women feel this difference immediately. Why silence restores mystery? Attraction requires uncertainty. Not chaos. Not insecurity. But space for imagination. When you explain everything, there is nothing left to wonder. Nothing left to interpret. Nothing left to desire. Silence reintroduces mystery. She begins to wonder. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Who are you becoming? And mystery is the birthplace of desire. Timing matters more than technique. Silence is powerful, but only when it's aligned. Silence too early feels cold. Silence too late feels fake. Silence used deliberately feels manipulative. But silence that arises naturally from self-respect, that is effortless. You don't announce it. You don't weaponize it. You simply stop reaching where nothing is reaching back. That kind of silence cannot be faked. Why silence makes your presence heavier? When you speak less, your words carry weight. When you act without explaining, your actions speak louder. Silence makes your presence felt, even when you're not there. This is why many women say, "I can't stop thinking about him." Not because you said the right thing, but because you didn't say too much. Stoic silence is not emotional withdrawal. This is critical. Silence is not emotional shutdown. It is emotional discipline. You are not closing your heart. You are closing your mouth. You remain open, grounded, receptive. Just no longer chasing reassurance. This balance is rare. And rarity creates value. What happens when she breaks the silence? Eventually, many women do. They send a message. They ask a question. They test the waters. This is where most men destroy everything. They over-explain. They pour emotion. They resume chasing. Silence taught her to feel. Your reaction teaches her whether you learned anything. A Stoic response is calm. Present. Unrushed. Interest without hunger. Warmth without attachment. And in that moment, polarity returns. The Stoic truth about control. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Men imagine silence means loss. In reality, silence often creates clarity. You don't control outcomes. You control your conduct. And silence, when chosen consciously, is often the highest form of self-command. The line between strength and absence. Here is the line you must never cross. Strength is silence with presence. Absence is silence with fear. If you disappear because you are hurt, you are still chasing, just in reverse. If you become silent because you are centered, you are no longer chasing at all. Women don't return to men who vanish. They return to men who remain whole. What silence ultimately communicates. Without a single word, silence says, "I am at peace with myself. I do not need to persuade you. I am open, but not dependent." And that message is often louder than any confession of love. In love, sometimes silence is the answer. It gives us time to listen to ourselves and understand the other person's heart better. That's also the reason I share stories on this channel, so that you have a pause, a peaceful space to reflect. If you find this meaningful, please click like and don't forget to subscribe, so that we can continue to accompany each other on the journey to find a peaceful and profound love. Now, let's continue the rest with me. Part 4, Boundaries, Why Self-Respect is More Attractive Than Effort. Most men believe attraction is built through effort. They think, if I do more, she'll feel more. If I give enough, she'll choose me. That belief is understandable. It's also wrong. Attraction is not built by effort alone. It is built by boundaries. Why effort without boundaries feels empty? Effort without boundaries is unlimited. And anything unlimited loses value. When a woman knows, you'll always be there. You'll always respond. You'll always adjust. She doesn't feel cherished. She feels comfortable. Comfort is safe. But comfort alone does not sustain desire. Desire needs friction. And friction comes from self-respect. Boundaries are not walls. Many men confuse boundaries with emotional distance. A boundary is not a wall. It is a line. It says, I am open to connection. But I will not cross myself to keep it. This distinction changes everything. Walls repel. Boundaries attract. What boundaries communicate without words? Healthy boundaries silently say, my time has value. My emotional energy is not unlimited. I choose relationships that choose me back. This communication is nonverbal. And nonverbal signals shape attraction far more than words. A woman doesn't need you to explain your standards. She feels them. Why boundaries create emotional safety? Here is the paradox. Boundaries don't push women away. They make women feel safe. Why? Because a man with boundaries is predictable in the right way. Not emotionally chaotic. Not resentful. Not self-sacrificing. He doesn't explode from bottled emotions. He doesn't disappear out of bitterness. He adjusts calmly. That stability feels grounding. The masculine core women respond to. Masculine energy is not dominance. It is containment. It holds emotion without drowning in it. It feels deeply without leaking urgency. Boundaries create this containment. And containment creates trust. Why chasing is the absence of boundaries. Chasing happens when boundaries collapse. You ignore your own discomfort. You override your intuition. You accept less while giving more. This creates inner conflict. And inner conflict always leaks outward. Women feel it, even if they can't explain it. How boundaries replace the need to chase. When your boundaries are clear, you don't need to chase. You simply observe. You notice. Is effort mutual? Is interest consistent? Is respect present? If yes, you lean in. If no, you lean back. No drama. No speeches. No ultimatums. Just alignment. The Stoic standard. Stoicism teaches. Live according to your values, regardless of outcome. In love, this means. You don't lower your standards to avoid loneliness. You don't overgive to secure affection. You don't stay where self-respect erodes. You remain kind. You remain open. But you remain whole. Why women return to men with boundaries. When a man holds his boundaries calmly, something powerful happens. She feels the cost of losing access to him. Not because he threatens. But because he doesn't chase. She realizes. This man will not stay where he is not valued. That realization often awakens respect. And respect is a foundation for desire. Boundaries turn love into choice, not obligation. Without boundaries, love becomes obligation. With boundaries, love becomes choice. A woman doesn't want to feel responsible for your happiness. She wants to choose you freely. Boundaries give her that freedom. And paradoxically, freedom increases attraction. The quiet strength that changes the dynamic. A man with boundaries does not announce them. He simply lives them. He does not argue for respect. He behaves as if it already exists. And when it doesn't, he adjusts. That quiet strength is rare. And rarity creates value. What boundaries ultimately say. Without a single confrontation, boundaries say. I know who I am. I know what I accept. And I will not abandon myself to be chosen. That message changes the dynamic completely. Part 5, Loving Without Attachment, Why Women Return to Men Who Never Lose Themselves. At some point in a man's life, he realizes something quietly devastating. Love cannot be secured. It can only be offered. The moment you try to hold it too tightly, it slips through your fingers. And the men women return to are not the ones who begged. Not the ones who chased. Not the ones who sacrificed themselves. They are the men who remained whole. The difference between attachment and commitment. Attachment says, I need you to feel complete. Commitment says, I am complete and I choose you. Most men confuse the two. And in doing so, they turn love into pressure. Attachment creates fear. Commitment creates presence. Women feel this difference instinctively. Why needing love repels, but offering it attracts? When you need love, you seek validation. You fear loss. You overinvest emotionally. When you offer love, you stay grounded. You allow space. You remain open without desperation. One feels heavy. The other feels freeing. And freedom is seductive. Stoic love is rooted in inner abundance. A Stoic man does not approach love from scarcity. He has a life with direction. Values he won't betray. Emotional depth he doesn't outsource. This inner abundance changes everything. He doesn't ask a woman to complete him. He invites her to walk beside him. Why women return to men who let go. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means releasing control. Control suffocates. Presence invites. When a man lets go of outcomes, he becomes lighter emotionally. He becomes more authentic. He becomes harder to replace. Not because he tries to be, but because he is no longer clinging. The masculine calm that reignites desire. There is something deeply attractive about a man who can love without panic. Who can feel deeply, without collapsing emotionally. Who can lose someone, without losing himself. This calm is not indifference. It is self-mastery. And self-mastery is magnetic. Why women don't return to the man you pretend to be. They return to the man you actually are. If you use techniques, games, or strategies, you might get attention. But you won't sustain desire. Because desire responds to being, not performance. Stoic love is not an act. It is alignment. The ultimate paradox. Here is the paradox that ties everything together. The man who is willing to lose her is the man most capable of keeping her. Not because he threatens, but because he doesn't fear. Fear makes men chase. Freedom makes men steady. And steadiness is rare. What it means to be chosen again. When a woman returns, it is rarely because you did something clever. It is because you stopped leaking neediness. You reclaimed your center. You became someone who could be lost. And loss creates value. The Stoic measure of love. Stoicism teaches: judge nothing as good or bad outside your character. In love, this means whether she stays or leaves, you remain aligned. You don't harden. You don't beg. You don't close your heart. You simply continue being a man who respects himself. Why this is the end of chasing forever. Once you understand this, chasing becomes unnecessary. Not because you no longer want love, but because you no longer abandon yourself for it. And from that place, love becomes a choice, not a struggle. Final truth. Women don't return because you pulled away. They return because you became a man who could walk away without resentment, and love without attachment. And that man is unforgettable. Conclusion. In the end, the truth is simpler than most men want to believe. Women don't return because you stopped loving them. They return because you stopped losing yourself. Chasing was never the problem because it showed care. It was the problem because it showed fear. Fear of loss. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. And fear, no matter how well-intentioned, dissolves attraction. When you stop chasing, something profound happens. You return to your center. You no longer ask love to save you. You no longer beg to be chosen. You no longer trade self-respect for attention. You stand still, not in pride, not in anger, but in alignment. This stillness is not passive. It is powerful. It tells the world, and her, without a single word: I am open to love, but I am not owned by it. From that place, love becomes clean again. Free of pressure. Free of obligation. Free of fear. And when a woman feels that freedom, she often returns, not because you pulled her back, but because she finally sees you clearly. Not as someone trying to be chosen, but as someone who chooses himself first. Stoic love is not about winning someone back. It is about becoming a man who does not need to chase what is meant to stay. And if she returns, it is a choice, not a victory. If she doesn't, you lose nothing essential. Because the man who never abandons himself is never truly left behind. Thank you for watching today's video. I'm so happy to share my lessons about love and relationships with you. I hope you learned something new and can apply it to your life. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for always accompanying and supporting me. Wish you a good day and don't forget to love yourself a lot.